Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of The Power. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So let's start off with the Joss and Margot side of things, because obviously this is picking up in the aftermath of the plane crash. We even have like the black box recording at the beginning. You hear like Michaela's voice, which the actress who plays Michaela, I was like, why does she look familiar? Is the actress who plays Claire in Reginald the Vampire. I was like, no wonder you look so familiar. Either way, this has become a much bigger thing. Daniel, the governor, he's kind of taking over. Hey, you've been up for hours. Why don't you let me take over? And it's like, oh, it seems like he's giving me a helping hand, but at the same time, it's like, why does it feel like he's screwing me over? And Ellen's like, because that's kind of what people like him do. Like they want to like shake and smile and when you're face to face, but then the moment your back's turned, they're like, stick a knife in it type of situation. That's, obviously the feds are getting involved. You have Michaela's dad trying to like see his daughter, but they won't even let her. Like she's kind of like locked up. And this is once again that very like X-Men thing of, the moment you start displaying powers, when the government gets involved asking a whole bunch of questions, they're also like putting a kibosh on this, like keeping this tight lip. I mean, but it's spreading like literal wildfire because the videos are popping up. It's not, Tundi's video is spreading like crazy, but it's not just, because that is the one that's getting the most play. Once again, it's even playing on TV, but it's also like other girls and women who's developing these powers are starting to make their own videos and showcases online, because it's like, hey, so this is a thing. Like, well, I'm displaying it too, especially in the day and age where social media is what it is. I could definitely see people just being like, hey, look what I could do. Like, it's like, oh, this person got millions of views. Like, I'm sure that doesn't help when you add in the teenage element of the Gen Z element of social media. Like, it's going to like push that even more. I'm not a comic book person. I wonder, has that ever really gotten pushed in the younger generation for like X-Men? Like, has that played a part? I'm sure maybe it has in the past in stories, but I'm feeling like, especially social media being the behemoth that it has been for a while, but even more so this day and age of, where your social media presence means so much, it literally defines, so many people's lives, especially on the younger side of things. So that's why I'm thinking that plays a contributing effort to it. But I think it's also people being like, hey, there's also people being like, I want to show that I'm here too. Like, I have this power, so they don't feel as alone. But I think it's a combination of all of that. Because we even saw that girl using her powers to right prick into someone's van for electricity. So it's one of those instances as well. But so Margot is talking to Michaela's dad and trying to figure out the situation, understand what ended up happening, and ends up talking to Margot. Margot ends up talking to Michaela herself, and it's like, right, I didn't mean to do it. It's just like, she doesn't like flying. Her dad made her take a Benadryl, but when the plane starts shaking, so it is just a thing of like, yeah, it started happening a while ago, like a couple days ago, like that static shock feeling in her fingers, and obviously she was just freaked out and scared. The blanket caught on fire. The flight attendant was trying to help her. That just aggravated the situation. But when Margot went to talk to the flight attendant, it turns out the flight attendant has it now. Now, before it gets revealed in the episode, the big question, because I think it's kind of revealed in the trailer. They hint at, not even hint, I think they straight up do say that this is transferable. So kind of went into that knowing this. But the big question was like, all right, is it like you fully like awakened it and someone else did it? Like, did you trigger something that was already there? And with the explanation later on in the episode, it seems that's the case. So a lot of young women have it, but that's because we find out, and I think this even the title of the episode is like New Organ. That's interesting because I was curious like how that was going, like how once again the big explanation for it, especially because they're making comparisons to eels. Because once again the eels have like 3 organs that basically help generate the electricity. The way Rob explains it, it's like, yeah, there is like each of your organs kind of like generate electricity all on their own, like your eyes, your heart, everything generates electricity to some extent, but this organ's only purpose is to generate electricity. And that's why it's, because like, that's why it's been, because especially with Allie, when it was first introduced to her, like the higher part of her chest was like highlighted. So it's because, once again, it's not, it doesn't start from their hands. It's in this particular organ. As we saw with Allie, it doesn't just, you can't, like, the easiest way to shoot it out is through your hands. But Allie's been shown that, hey, she could do it through her feet too. Like, I think you could probably just generate it from every angle of your body. It just makes it easier to probably project it from your fingers and your hands and your feet. But who knows if you could end up just like surging it from other like aspects of your, like just completely power surging it from your entire body. Who, once again, we don't know the full extent of this, but that's the big thing with the transfer. Are you awakening this organ already in other people? Like, it doesn't exist even in older women as well, and you're just sparking that awakening. Like, you're just like basically jolting it alive because it's been dormant this entire time. Or is it a situation of you legitimately give the spark to someone else, and maybe in that instance they start growing said organ? Because it happened pretty quickly. Because even the flight attendant was like, I think me and Michaela brought this plane down. That's why it happened, because it wasn't just her; it was me too. The moment she transferred it, but she even said like, "Oh, I felt good. Like I felt really, really good." And it's just, it sparked out of control when both of them are kind of like freaking out under the circumstances. So I'm so curious to understand that specific element to it more as well, of like the transfer element of how that exactly works in like the science, like fictional, like explanation for how that works. Like, is it like a temporary thing, or is it a permanent thing of like, once you have that spark, it's there forever? Like I said, is it kind of the metaphor I've been using a lot lately? Is it like a seed that's sparked and grown? Like I said, like, it stems from an organ. So do all these women have the organ too? And it's dormant. Like, how long has it been there? Why is it awakening now? The conversation is like, right, it's got to be an evolutionary thing. It's very, very much like the X-Men mutation, mutant gene. That or is it a byproduct? Is it like a mutation caused by some external thing that might be more man-made, or is it just evolutionary in the sense of it's for the sake of survival, which I thought was kind of interesting. How deep down the rabbit hole they're going to go on that, I'm curious, because I feel like this is what it's inferring, but maybe this is me reading too much into it. Like, it's just like having to kind of survive the way the world is, and like kind of like a shift and change in power needs to happen on like a larger scale. I mean, especially with Allie's situation, it's like, once again, is that like someone else sparking this sort of revolution? Once again, is that voice just Allie's, like, you know, subconscious, and she's reading more into it, like thinking it's something else when it's just herself that she's just not aware of? Or is there someone else pulling the strings and kind of orchestrating this, you know? But like, maybe it's just like a societal and just world, societal sense in the world of just like the position women have kind of been put in of, you know, maybe that's the survival instinct of like, right now you are the more dominant species because you have this power that, you know, you've kind of had to be silenced in other regards, and now you have the power to speak up and stand your ground. And especially when you look at the instances these powers have developed, as kind of people who feel boxed in for different situations, whether it's Allie's circumstances, whether it's Roxy's circumstances, whether it's Joss's kind of what she's potentially, you know, struggling with internally, and just, I mean, externally too, just because of her issues. Once again, it doesn't seem like she has much beef with her dad, but specifically her issues with her mom. Like, all that kind of, I think, compounds into this situation. So I actually kind of went into this series thinking that Margot was going to be more antagonistic, because I didn't know that Joss was going to end up being her kid. So I kind of went into thinking she was going to be more so like it's been a while since I saw the trailer, so I don't remember. I think I've seen the teaser. I don't think I actually ever saw the full trailer. Did I? I don't think I did. And maybe that might be stemming from my confusion or whatever. But I was thinking like maybe she'd be more like the anti-power like maybe she'd be more on the government side of examining all of this, which obviously she's coming from the angle of, no, I don't want that because my daughter's in that position, especially with everything that popped off at school. Because of the plane going down, the governor kind of put out this rule, like obviously like the girls couldn't even get on the bus. They were only picking up like the dudes. And then like, it's like, yo, what's going on? And then in class, and this is where we start getting into the whole like ratting people out thing, like we're turning people against people. It's not just, oh, guys are ratting out girls, because one girl was like, yo, no, he's only saying that because we broke up last week. You even have Yuki kind of being like, yo, Kat and Joss have been displaying it, and it's like, why would you rat us out like that? Because even Kat was like, nah, I ain't liking this. Like, it definitely feels kind of like, oh, history has shown that humanity can be pretty terrible when we start separating people. You're like, oh, you're different? Yeah, come with us. It's not going to be a problem. It's like, yeah, cool. They were all putting like these little glass barriers, I think, or some barriers, I guess, to stop like any electricity. And in Joss's case, like, I mean, and maybe the other girls' cases, but you definitely see it with Joss. Her hands were covered and her hands were zip tied. You're like, yo, that's like, you're acting like these are some hardened criminals. Like, oh, we got to, I mean, I get it, but it's like, that does not instill the greatest feeling when like you have a parent, not just one parent, but parents showing up to see their kids being treated like hardened, like, oh, oh, you're acting like my child's a killer or something, the way they're kind of being. And Joss is probably also going to have to, it doesn't come up this episode, but she's eventually going to have to deal with the ramifications at school of like, wait, your mom is the mayor? Like, how do we not know that? She's kept that super low key, because I think even some of the girls there were like whispering like, whoa, what the, because she was also the first one to get released. So she does kind of have that power privilege, I guess, of like, yo, your mom's mayor, so she can sway stuff. Not everyone's parents that way, but Rob and Margot did make a point to be like, no. If these kids aren't released to their parents in like the next hour, you're going to have a whole shitstorm on your hand to deal with. So it isn't, it's like, right, those kids are going to get released to their parents, but it's still the thing of Joss got released way earlier. Like her mom came down. That's why she was probably hoping more so her dad would come down, because she doesn't want people to know who her mom is. Like, not only does she have beef with her mom, obviously there are people who don't like her mom for other reasons. Once again, we don't know, because like what we've seen of what we've seen of Margot so far doesn't warrant that, but it's also like, yeah, we don't know, like maybe people hate her for her politics or just whatever, once again calling her a witch and stuff online. To be fair, you can't take online as gospel, because online is online, and people will say the vilest shit online just to say it, because it's like, hey, anonymity, and I can say what I want. And even people who put themselves out there will still say some foul stuff because they're behind the, so and even then, once again, social media is only a percentage, because not every single person in the world, it can feel like that, but not every single person in the world is on social media. So there's a lot you have to kind of take with a grain of salt. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if that's even like a lot of people who shit on, Margot, or maybe it is, but I mean, even if it's not, like, even if it's a small percentage, that's still like, that small percentage can still be a lot of people. So that's just a whole thing in itself. So we don't know how people generally feel about Margot, except for like how Joss has felt about her and how some online comments have referred to her. So, but once again, from what we've seen so far, she seems like a decent person until the show shows us otherwise, of like, oh, she, because she seems like she's trying to fight everything, go against the political animal that is, well, politics itself, the animal that politics is. So she doesn't seem like your typical like politician. She is trying to do things differently, like shake shit up. So I don't know. We'll have to wait to see on like more on, like I said, what really, like, if she, like I said, I went into this thinking she might be a little more antagonistic, but she does seem to be more so, and she's a parent, like fighting, more so to look after everyone, especially when every government official is lying about all of this, because those in Washington want to, like, every powerful person around the world is keeping their mouth hushed because they are being told what this is about, but once again, they don't want to cause a panic. But at the end of the episode, she's the one that led the charge of telling the truth, because she's like, right, women, we know what has happened in history when women haven't been fully explained about what's going on through their bodies. They try to handle things on their own, back alley abortions, postpartum depression, like had to stay in silence because women thought like, oh, something's wrong with me, not realizing like there are plenty of women. I don't know what the statistics are, but there are. It is a thing that just naturally happens. It isn't just like, oh, something's wrong with you. It is something that just happens. It's a chemical imbalance that women can go through, like especially after giving birth, that depression period. So it isn't like like something's wrong with me. Like other women go through it too. So it's like it isn't like I don't know like how much of like a natural thing, but I do know that it affects enough women that it's not like something's wrong with you type of thing. So, but it's like, hey, we need to know, women need to know what's going to like happen to themselves. So she's the one that put it out there, and also that it's transferable. We're going to be figuring stuff out for the next couple of months, but things in this world as we know it is about to change because Daniel wasn't willing to stick his neck out there because he was like, yeah, you saw what happened with the COVID situation. I'm not about to sacrifice that. But he also was super pissed when he's like, Margot, don't screw this up for me, because her superseding him in that regard. It's like, oh, what did you know? And when did you know it? Why didn't you say anything? Why was it the mayor of Seattle that said something rather than the governor? It's like, right, he's going to have to be fielding a lot of that, and he's going to get a lot of blowback and on that, especially those who had to kind of somewhat retract their statements because they were like, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, and then they'd be like, well, yeah, there's validity to this, and they made a point to show you like different leaders, specifically a lot of male leaders, saying like how they're going to handle this. It's like, right, they're going to have a more aggressive approach. There was another woman being like, hey, we need to handle this a little more delicately. Like some leaders are saying like kind of imprisonment, kind of like we need to have like harsher rulings on this to kind of like subside the situation. There was even one political person, I don't know if it's a leader from a different country, be like, just to carry on, like, because he had been one of the people that said this was a hoax. So a lot of them had to backtrack their statements. I'm also curious what role Tosh is going to play going forward. She's Rob's ex, and she's a person that Rob was like, oh, Margot, go to her. She'll get you to see Michaela. She's also the one that did some examination on Joss. They're the ones who ended up finding out about the organ with on a MRI's X-ray of her chest. Ended up showcasing the new organ stuff. And then Rob and Tosh are talking like their language about like, oh, like, and kind of like the scientific doctor speak of like, oh, what this is all about. And Margot had to be like, yo, in layman terms, tell me what's up. I'm probably reading too much into it, but I'm curious, is there going to end up being something more with that storyline or not? Because you could tell, like, kind of like made Margot go, huh? Like when they're just once again kind of talking their own way and just, oh, you want to go off and talk to Tosh really quickly, like, huh? Yeah, especially when I talk to Tosh and it's like, oh yeah, like how when they met, like as with the whole, was it Doctors Without Borders type of situation, and how much it changed their lives, and it's just like feels like there's more to that, but once again we'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. Once again, like I said, I could be reading much more into that than necessary, but obviously, Joss accidentally ended up hurting her brother. To be fair, he was being a tool. He was up there saying like, oh, yeah, like, oh, there's one of your family members in ill or whatever. I'm like, first and foremost, you found out your sister has electrical powers. Why are you starting shit, homie? That's stupid on your part. If I find out someone has superpowers, the last thing I'm going to do is like, even if it's a sibling, I'll be like, yo, I'd be on my best behavior. Like, you were acting like a little idiot. Yes, it was an accident regardless, but I'm also like, yeah, that was your fault. You're stupid. Why would you start like problems with your sister when you know she has power? Shut up. That's on you. Yeah, his eye's going to be fine, but he's going to have scarring from the electricity. And it's like, yeah, Margot tried to be like, hey, Joss, I get it. It's okay. Like, it wasn't your fault. But Joss kind of goes like, right, you've been like, we haven't hung out in like a year or whatever. But for Margot, it's like, cause she's like, oh, like the only reason why you're talking to me now, Mom, is because you think like I might hurt your political career and stuff. But it's like, no, like I don't want that to happen. I thought you didn't want to hang out with me. Like, it's true. But then, like, they haven't really had a chance to really sit down and talk. And obviously, Rob didn't want her to kind of go public with some stuff just because it's like, wait, whoa, maybe we should figure stuff out first. But it's like, right, we need to jump on this because, as Rob said, this isn't just an accident. It's like, if it was one thing, if it was isolated, sure. But there are hundreds of thousands of women, like, around the world experiencing this. So it's like, we need to kind of jump on this before it turns into something, because it already is turning into a witch hunt type of situation. Once again, history's separating of people being potentially different, and even because that, especially that classroom scene, really been like, oh yeah, I heard so and so is a witch, because people had, like, especially in Yuki's case, because I think she kind of felt like left out, but it's also the thing of she doesn't want to get lumped in accidentally. So it's like, right, if I report these people, maybe it would look like, okay, like, I have nothing to do with this or whatever. Like, I don't want to take the chance because no one knows how this worked at that time. So it's like, hey, maybe it's a virus. I don't want to catch it. I don't want to be ostracized. So, like, get them out, deal with them, so I don't have to potentially catch it and be caught up in this as well. So once again, it wasn't just like, oh, some guys like ratting on girls. It's like there were other girls ratting on other girls. So once again, I'm sure it's the parallel that witch hunting mentality, whether it is just the literal, like, Salem witch trials type of thing, or even like the Red Scare situation in the 80s. Either way, so that side of things ended up being most of the episode. We had some other elements like Allie's circumstances. She ended up getting taken in by this, not whether the Church of Christ or something like that, the Sisters of they're the Sisters of Christ, and they're not connected to the church. It's that situation of, yes, we have faith, we have our beliefs, but we're not associated with the church. It's like, because it's like, we have our faith and our beliefs, but we don't believe in the institution that is the church. Especially like Sister Veronica, because she's always been kind of like someone who's going against the grain of what the church has been about. She's been kind of a rebel, and even the voice telling Allie, like, hey, a place of wayward girls and rebel nuns. I told you'd find a place to belong. It's like, this is a, kind of, and even Sister Maria was talking about the revolution, like that, a revolution has to kind of be handled in a very specific way. So this could be essentially the breeding ground of where Allie needs to be to kind of be who she's supposed to be. And I even love that thing of, like, she's seeing the video and be like, wait, do you guys have it as well? And it's like, yeah, all the girls there at this place have it. And it's like, for Allie, it's like, I thought I was special. I thought, so now everyone's special. It's like, no, but they can't do what you can do. Once again, we've seen, she's the only one we've seen so far that's been able to transfer it, like, through her feet. So who knows the full extent of what specifically she's capable of, especially because his voice is setting her up to be kind of the leader of all of this. Once again, I also love the fact is, oh, what's your name? And she's like, Eve, and the voice is like, ooh, good choice. And it's like, yeah, the parallels. Kind of, she's setting herself up to be, or the voice is setting her up to be kind of like the Eve leading this new dawn in this world. But I do like that element, kind of showcasing that, hey, just because there's a religious angle to it, you see that with Sister Veronica, just, you can separate, once again, yourself from, like, you can have your faith in every day and just, separate yourself from, like, the institution of, like, yeah, because there are plenty of people who are Christians who don't believe in the whole, like, oh, being anti anything LGBTQ plus, and she's been an advocate fighting for stuff throughout. And even she's the one that took Sister Maria in when her family disowned her for being, like, embracing who she is. And it's like, and that even got Sister Veronica excommunicated. So it's like, stay here, don't just leave, stay here. And I think this is, like I said, is going to be an important foundational place for Allie. If everything kind of stays above board, and it'll be interesting to see where things kind of go. Because once again, it's a conversation of, yes, change is scary. The world has not responded to change. And that's also going to be the interesting conversation of, there probably will be backlash for what Margot has decided to do. There's going to be plus, but there are also going to be minuses. It's a double-edged sword, spreading the truth, being the first one out the gate, being the face of the truth about what's going on. And I'm curious to see how Joss feels about it. We didn't really get a full like understanding like what's going through her mind when it's like she's watching her mom put that out there, but maybe she feels better about it. Maybe it's like, hey, you're helping me and other people understand what's going on. I don't know. Or maybe she'll look at it as like, oh, it feels like you're politicizing me and many other women's circumstances to boosters. It could be misconstrued that way as well, but I think obviously I believe Margot had the best intentions, so we'll have to wait and see on that front. And then there's the Tundi situation. He's getting calls from CNN. They want to offer him a job because of his reporting, But his dad is kind of against all of that. It's like, right, you've caused enough problems, right? You go to school, go down the lane. I want you to. Don't be chasing this stupid like journalist route. You have your life is kind of paved out for you. You need to go down this route. And it's like, right, stay away from Nadudi. Like you done enough damage. You've caused enough trouble on that front. And he ends up going to see her later on because he kind of wants her advice about, and it is kind of like the moment he's like, right, I came to see you because I was worried about you. I was like, oh, that seems like you're lying. It feels like you're trying to get close to her. I thought he was going to be like, hey, I'm going to go. I got this CNN job. I want to bring you with me. Like together we can unravel. But for her, it's like, oh, you want my advice? It's like, no, this was my story that you hijacked. And also, she brought up a very good point. My face is of the viral video. Like, what happened to me? There have been so much, consequences of that. Like, me, specifically what happened to me, especially because of the whole, because of the juju element of it all, in her family and just everyone probably talking about it. She's been put in a complicated position because of it, because of his choice. Once again, it wasn't his story. First and foremost, it wasn't his story. Like, he snatched her story, he put it online, but also it was part of, my story even more so with what happened to me, and it feels like you took advantage of it and you did this. It's like, basic Tundi, you need to make a choice. Figure out what you want, and basically, because he's always been so half-hearted with stuff, And she's like, if you're going to go down a route, go all the way. Don't, half-heart it. Don't half-ass it. And he's like, I don't know what I want. And she's like, that's not my problem. That's for you to figure out. It's time for you to kind of man up. And he takes that and he's like, she's right. I need to kind of go down my route. This is what I believe in. This is what I want to do. If I take this job, I take this opportunity, I could speak to people that other journalists won't be able to. This is where my passions lie rather than going to school for something I don't really care about. This is something that is important and I can help be the one that kind of help tell this story. So try to do something meaningful with his life in this regard. Now, whether that ends up taking a nasty turn on the journalist route of how this could all turn out, we don't know. Or maybe he can be a positive advocate in regards to kind of like Mark. Who knows how that's all going to play out. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of that is. Because that was mainly them trying to buy the rights off of them. And they were offering him a job, but it's also they never explained what that job necessarily would have been. It's like, we're going to buy your footage so we have the rights to it. So if anyone wants to use it, they kind of have to license it from us. So it's that whole thing. But also, they can have you on their side, kind of adding validity to hey, we have this footage, but they could also end up throwing you on the lower end. So you might have to try and work your way up and prove yourself. So taking the job might not be all that he thinks it's going to be, but another element, we'll have to ultimately wait to see where all this ends up taking us. I'm curious, is this going to be a 1-a-week episode thing, or will it be 2 or 3? Because I was looking it up. Originally, this is supposed to be a 10-episode season, but it's only 9. So I wonder, are they going to do? Is this only going to be 2 more weeks? Will it be 3 next week and 3 the week after that, or will it just be one? I could definitely see it being one after one, just because it's not an even enough episodes to have 2, because it seems like Prime Video does try to do the 2 at a time, not less the last 3 episodes are aired, or maybe they only do 1 that week. It's going to be interesting to see ultimately how they end up breaking down the airing of the season because of that. I don't know if that's even really going to affect anything. Would it have changed anything? Would it have just been 2 every week or afterwards, or would it just have been 1 regardless of that 1 extra episode, and not it not being 10, but instead of 9. Either way, I'm excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.